My name is Bill Alderfer. I'm the Director of Parks and Rec here in Cheltenham Township. With me are a few colleagues. Kelly Reeves is in the hole, so to speak, giving out coins and coin books and everything you need. So make sure you see Kelly to get your coins and your coin book when you get yet. Sylvester Corby, our program coordinators in the back, taking pictures. And someone who made this incredibly possible. Linda Raisch is back there. She's not teaching art or doing aquatics for the township. She does graphic design for me. So the beauty of these PowerPoints are thanks to her. So I didn't get to say that the last time she wasn't here, but she's here today. Thanks, Linda, for this. So so Cheltenham Celebrates America 250, February part 2. This is park history. And this came about kind of twofold. As you may know, we hire a lot of summer staff, and there are a lot of high school and college kids. And last summer, we were kind of doing this joke about asking questions about the township. And a lot of the high school kids, most high school kids, and a lot of high school kids, and a lot of the college kids, didn't quite know a lot about the township. This is kind of weird. How do we not know so much about where you live, right? And Kelly says that you should teach in the school, not so much anymore. And I was at a high school park event, at somebody's house, but there was a whole room dedicated to the history of high school park. So I brought this concept back to the Park Friends groups, some of which you'll hear from today, Thomas Williams and Grove and high school and Tookany. And I said, hey, wouldn't this be a great idea for part of our 250 series to talk about park history, right? So deep history within this township, as you all know, around architecture, around true American history, but also around our green spaces. So here's how it's going to go. I'm going to kick this off with a high overview of all the green spaces within the township, kind of a tour of the township, so to speak. Partially what my team did in August of 24 when I first got here. Greetings, Commissioner anniversary, everybody. We weren't expecting that one. And just give you an overview of all that, and then we'll get a deeper dive into park history too, which is how parks are connected to where schools used to be. Used to be times where they were in school. Right? Mindy will do a little talk on Grove Park when I get that in the overview, and then John Raisch knows a lot about the Tookany, so he's going to share that with us towards the end. So, all right, but where do we start? Well, we're trying to connect to American history, and I decided to add this to the presentation after the first one. So you're the first one seeing this. The people on Zoom will have to watch it on YouTube. You think about U.S. history, you think about the early stages of this country, you think about William Penn and what he had set out to do, and you have this really primitive map here of Philadelphia with the 5 squares between the 2 rivers and this kind of grid style of city planning. But what was important during the colonial era is they realized that there needed to be a place for people to gather. It could be for some sort of community gathering, it could even be for a burial. Right, those things happen in public spaces. Matter of fact, even today, a lot of park and rec agencies across the country manage cemeteries. It's not uncommon. You'll hear about 5Ks being run through a cemetery. It's just another way to do recreation. As we get into the 1800s, you'll see it became part of the urban infrastructure. I think John's going to talk more about that when we talk about parkways. But you know, as cities industrialize, we start to see this happen. Right, we need ways to recreate. We need to get people together. 1900s, we get into libraries and waterfronts, right? If I was lucky and I was a park director in Miami, Dade County, I'd have the biggest budget in the country because they control the beaches. How cool is that, right? Think about that revenue generated for that budget. It's really nice. Then we get into the late 1900s, and we see this decline in civic assets. And it's not just local to us in Philadelphia area, Cheltenham. I was at the New England State Conference in mid-January. The same type of situation up there. Aging infrastructure that hasn't been taken care of in a number of years, right? And in many instances, we thought there was going to be population increases, so things were built, and they just were never used. Right? If you go through the city now, anybody in the city is within a 10-minute walk of a park or a rec center. It's crazy, the infrastructure, right? But it's declining. We need to find money for it. So now, in present times, we're looking to revitalize and reinvest in public spaces. We're lucky to have a space like this, Elkins Central. It's used by the art center as an event space, right? But it's a true public space. You think about Glenside and Curtis Hall. You think about the community centers. You think about the pools. You think about the parks that you walk your dog in every day. It's super important, and you need to think of creative and useful ways to come up with the money to do it through interesting partnerships or initiatives, right? And many things that we're trying to do here, in Cheltenham to reinvigorate what we're doing, much like rotating the concert series to numerous parks, and you can see every park in the township, things like that. The other thing that we want to just mention are that parks are really beneficial to everyone's well-being. And you can read the slide, you can see it later, but really it comes down to, right, physical health, we get it. Whether it's the kid playing soccer on the soccer field at Wall Park, or somebody running their dog at the dog park at Curtis, or you're just walking through High School Park with your friends, it's really important for physical health. Get that for sure. There was a trend that was really popular early in the 2000s called Nature RX, where doctors were actually writing prescriptions to get out into nature. It's important. And even more important, we learned this a lot during the pandemic, is how it connects to mental health, right? And I told this story last time, I'll tell you, I had a friend who was going through a really tough time at work, and she was, texting, and I said, listen, do yourself a favor. Just reset. Walk out of the office, walk around the corner where the park is, take 10 minutes to go back in, right? Just totally get a mental health break. And sure enough, I talked to her later that evening, and she said, yeah, you know what, that worked. It was nice, right? And, there's plenty of studies on stuff getting out in nature and the benefits, not just physically, but mentally as well. Social connection, community building, that goes all the way back to colonial era, right? Probably earlier than we probably look at the Greeks and how they congregated in space. Environmental awareness and stewardship, that's why park friends groups exist, right? I think there's no way me, Kelly, Sylvester, Glynis, and Josh, who's not Josh, is here with us, can manage all this, right? And Jim Reeves from the park maintenance team is here, his team with Bob Dominic and the rest of the crew. You're going to see how much that they cover. It's amazing, right? But we need help. We need help, and that's why the friends groups exist, to help steward the land, help promote awareness. And then finally, it's not talked about a lot, but there's economic value, right? We can talk about how it connects to small business and how we can do development that way, but also lifting property value is super important. A lot of people look at parks and green spaces when they move to an area. I think that's one of the things that makes Cheltenham really great. And of course, Chris is always happy to see you. So yes, the science nerd in me comes out. My degree is in biology. These are vascular bundles from the brains. So I'm carry nutrients and water through the blade of grass, but it's also just a cute picture to set the mood. All right, let's talk about the park system. We have over 20 parks that cover about 400 acres, a little bit more, I think like 412 or 413. But that comprises about 7% of our land. If you read the comp plan, it says open space is about 11% of the township. That includes like the cemeteries and where the golf courses are and all that other stuff. So there's some private stuff in that comp plan. But when you think about our parks, you can think about ball fields. You can think about active and passive parks. Passive parks are parks that people just come and just kind of use passively as they want to walk and go. Actively think more like it's dedicated to the program or a ball field, something like that. We have 2 bird sanctuaries I'll talk about briefly, and so much more. And I use over 20 parks that you'll see when John talks about the Tookany. When you go down to along the parkway there, it's kind of divided up. So depending on how you look at it, you can look at the Twins, big park, you can look at the veterans, et cetera, et cetera. And John will talk more about that. All right, so we're going to start the tour, and we're going to go relatively west to east, loosely, and start at H. Carrollbrook Park. It's in Glenside. Anybody been there? Oh, a handful of people. Okay. All right. One of the challenges coming out of this is everything we're doing in 2026, we're going to encourage people to continue on forever and ever. So hopefully when this is done and the weather breaks, please, we can do a tour of the system. So this is named after a former commissioner. You're going to see that a whole lot. This is really far northwest in the township, and it's a nice little spot. Playground, basketball court, parking lot. Probably one of those stranded assets I'll talk about a lot. We don't often get permit requests for Carroll Grill. It's got a decent little field there. You can play, half court basketball, and it has a parking lot, which is hard to come by in a lot of parks. We come over to Grove Park, and this will be Mindy will take over in a quick minute. This is also in Glenside, and it's named from a. Oh, come on. Okay. I don't want to share over here.
Okay, I actually don't know why it's called Grove Park, but I know why the creek is named, but I can get to that. But I want to say thank you to Bill and Parks and Rec for inviting the parks to participate in this. And I also wanted to echo a little bit of what Bill was saying, because delving into the history of any part of our township, it just deepens our relationship with where we live and the community that we have. And it's fascinating because it's really looking back into history and what we used to have. And I do have, I'll tell you about another picture. I have a little book, but it's a relatively small park. As Bill said, it's a passive park, which I think is useful for defining what kind of things you have at your park, but it is a very active park because it's very well used by our neighbors. The Parks and Rec has started a Pee Wee soccer program there. We have picnics there. There's a spring picnic. A couple years ago, the township started the Monarch Festival that's there. So there's a lot happening. So if you are around for those things, please, everyone's invited. We'd love to have it. So I want to say thanks to Tom Witkowski, who was one of the speakers at the first event, and he is in the Old York Road Historical Society, and also with the Cheltenham Township Historical Commission. And he volunteers at the Long House as well. But I had a great conversation with him, so a lot of the information that I got was from him, including this great photograph from 1935. This is while it was still part of the estate. And thanks to my son for shading in Grove Park, so you get an idea. But you can see this is Glenside Avenue, Linwood, and this is Fontier, and then there were no other streets. So my house is somewhere around here. But it used to be part of the George Heist Shady Nook Farm and Estate. The creek that runs through it was unofficially named the Shady Nook Creek in commemoration of that. It's originally land that was purchased in the 1600s from William Penn by a man named Thomas Phillips, who was a Quaker in England at the time. And this is an interesting thing I learned from Tom. He didn't actually purchase this land. What people did was they purchased warrants. And when they came over, I think that might have been on your first slide, there was a surveyor named, what was his name? Thomas Hall. He was a surveyor. And there were an original 15 owners or people who had these warrants. And I do have a picture of the original survey in this book if you want to take a look at it. It's pretty fascinating. So they purchased a warrant. They had so many years to come over and develop the land and settle the land. So they came over, and the surveyor basically drew a tract on a map and said, okay, this is your land, and then you have to develop it. So Thomas Phillips was the person who purchased this land. And I felt like I had to add, because one of the things that I like to do when I'm thinking about history is thinking about places and what they looked like before they were developed. And I started to go back in time, like, oh, this was the Heist Estate, then this was the Thomas Phillips tract. And as you probably are aware, these are all previous lands for the Lenape Indians. And there are a lot of, and this is something that Tom Witkowski actually talked to me about too. He had a little more information about it. But there were trails that went through Cheltenham Township, which wasn't Cheltenham then, and Bucks counties were from the Lenape who would walk up through the area to their hunting grounds. So as we go back in time, it's a really rich history we have in the area. So Friends of Grove Park was started in 2005, and it was originally started to help communication between neighborhoods and the township. And at the same time evolved, became an organization that helped to take care of the park and create community space. So we really enjoy a wonderful relationship with Parks and Rec, and also with Bob Dominic and the Parks Maintenance. They do a lot there, but they plant trees, they clean up, they planted Parks and Rec planted a pollinator garden. So we really are appreciative of the relationship that we have with everyone in the township. Last thing, I just had to put a whole slide for this, but the annual Monarch Festival is there, and it's a really beautiful event, especially for kids, but also for adults. So that happens every September, and if you're free, and if you get the emails from the township, you'll know, and it would be lovely to see.
Thanks, Mindy. All right, as we move through Glenn's side, we get to Harry Renninger Recreation Area. I kind of look at this as a campus. You have the library on one side of Waverly, followed by the hall with a playground behind it. And then you have the pool. And then you have athletic space, right? There's basketball courts back there as well as a ball field. What you may not know is back where those basketball courts are, that's where the pool was up until 1967. Then it got moved to its current location. It's a really well-used area. We love it because of the proximity to the pool and the hall. If we need to move things indoors, we can. It's really nice. And we have a great partnership there with the Glenside Youth Athletic with the Council Coalition. And, they help maintain that as much as they can with the help of our park maintenance team. But, could be loved a little bit more. We can really look at this as one of those public spaces that we can really invest in and think about how do we elevate that as a campus for recreation, right? We know we have indoor community space. We know we have outdoor recreation space. We know we have a pool, right? We know we have court space. What does that look like, 3, 5, 10 years down the road? Maybe we bring in Arcadia as a partner on that, do some athletics there. I don't know. But as we think through how we redevelop and better use this stuff, those are the questions we're asking. By the way, this is one of the events I got dolphins as well. Any dolphins in the house? No dolphins. Uh-oh. Must be all barracudas playing. Oh, Emily. Oh, what's a dolphin? All right. I will not talk much about Thomas Williams because Olga from Thomas Williams Park Friends Group will go through all this. It's in Wyncote, and you'll see that full history very soon. Ralph Morgan, that's a nice, cozy little park down by the Jenkintown train station. It was once named Wyncote Park, but as we've said already, commissioners get parks named after them. The last one we were doing, Commissioner Rappaport about naming a park after her, so maybe someday. Again, nice little, small park, basketball court, walking path, playground, some open space. Sylvester took the senior program down there a few times for this Friday afternoon or Friday morning senior walking club, and they really seemed to like it. It was a nice cafe. So if you're looking for a nice walking area, it's a nice place to go. Curtis Arboretum, if you miss the history of Curtis, you can catch up on Park History 1. It's on the YouTube channel, so take a look at that. A lot going on over there. The hall, and that's where the board meetings take place, as well as weddings and all kinds of other fun things. But the Arboretum's there. You can walk around and enjoy nature with some ponds, and then the dog park down the bottom. But if you want the full history behind the estate and the hall, make sure you check out that YouTube video. Robinson Park, same thing that's on the first park history video. That's a nice park on Greenwood Avenue, kind of across the street from All Hallows Church, but also almost like catty corner to Main Street Pizza. Really, really beautiful area there. I don't want to say hidden behind a historic wall, but it's kind of nestled away because of that. The pond is beautiful. The gazebo has a lot of local history to it, a lot of prom pictures and wedding pictures. So check out that video as well. Alex from that from Robinson transcript of the job with it. All right, John Russell, maybe we have a lot of challenges, but maybe our greatest challenge as far as parks go. John Russell Park is in Lamont. It's along Penrose Avenue. It was actually part of a larger area that was owned by someone with the local estate that eventually went to the Robinson family, but it ran from Penrose Avenue all the way up to Serpentine Road. So if you can imagine that, it was a pretty vast expanse of green space that was divided, and this was given to the township. John Russell Park suffers because of its location. It is on Penrose, right by Cheltenham Avenue, and the shopping center butts up to it with a parking lot. And it is just incredibly tough to program. We have no problem, 3 blocks away, getting kids to Lamont for programming. So that's our run soccer at Lamont, and we had kids come out to it. But for whatever reason, when folks ask for field space, and we kick over John Russell, it's just not sucked up in the permit process. I even had a displaced football program from the city who lost their site because of the rebuild program, asked if I had any field space. And I said, the only thing I can offer you is John Russell. And they didn't want it. So always thinking of interesting ideas and ways we can change things. If you have ideas, feel free to send them my way. We talked about maybe a disc golf course. Someone mentioned a dog park. Right? There's a number of different things we can look at there. But it's just tough sometimes. Rock Lane Park, just learned about a month ago that what I thought was Rock Lane Park is actually 2 parks. One doesn't have a name. So, but if you look across the back gate of Linwood Hall, you'll see a path that goes down. Now, Commissioner Stein, make sure I get this right. That's the part that we're not sure what it's called, right? But when it loops back around to like Rock Lane, that's where I'm. But it's a natural area. It's green space. We have ideas to go look at it. There's a talk maybe within the Linwood Hall doing a history walk along there somehow, somewhere where you can put up, placards where people can come and learn local history along the path. More of that to follow. But I encourage you to check it out. It is a nice little space. Wall Park. If it wasn't for Curtis, it'd probably be the granddaddy of all parks in the township. I guess historically, it really is. I think it was the first green space that was given to the township. We all know about Wall House, and we know that there's soccer down there, but there's a lot that goes into Wall Park. I mean, if you go down there, probably in about 6 weeks on a spring afternoon, that place will have exploded. Right? And what's really cool about Wall Park is it's multi-generational. You will see 5-year-olds on that once upon a playground, wooden playground that's down there, side by side with 75-year-olds playing pickleball with high school kids maybe on the field playing football, kicking soccer. It's really neat to see. And then you have the whole history across the street at the Wall House. I just want to focus on this once upon a playground for a minute. I guess, maybe in the 90s, early 2000s, there was a group of parents who got together and there was a friends group around this wooden playground. Right? And I didn't know much about it until I took the job, and one of my colleagues in the city said, that was a big playground for kids to go to coming across Cheltenham Avenue during the pandemic because it was something that was interesting. And I started thinking about it. I'm like, we have that giant castle playground in Bucks County, right? I think it's actually called the Castle. And it's a destination playground, right? There's a destination playground beneath the Brooklyn Bridge, which is people just go to see it. And I think I told the story last time. I was at SummerSlam in Cleveland and I went to a park, right? It was a destination park in Cleveland. Pretty cool. And I really think, probably a $500,000 investment at some point for somebody who wants to help us out or some grant to get that where it needs to be. But that could be a destination program. You really bring in, kids, bring in to learn the history and then use our shopping districts and all that good stuff. On top of the kids that come in to play soccer there, right? I mean, Cheltenham soccer is inter-county. So you have kids coming to play soccer there from all around the area. which is, you know, a big deal. And this is stuff we need to show. Elkins Park. This is kind of nestled right before you get to High School Park. You'll know it by the track that runs around it. But what you may not know is behind that track and behind the little play area, there is tennis court that we have lined for pickleball, but we primarily use it for tennis. Really nice and hidden. You go over this little bridge to get there. Not much to say about Elkins other than the fact that during a storm in March of 25, this swing set had a tree fall through it. And you will hear me say this over and over and over again. Public spaces are deeply personal to people. And you never see it more than when there's a play equipment out of whack. Right? I can't tell you how many emails and calls I got about that swing set. Now, sadly, we're still government, right? And we don't just have swing sets sitting down, you know, the yard, so to speak. So you have to go through a procurement process. It ends up being like 6 or 9 months before anything comes in, and then you lay the cement, and then you're able to put the equipment in. So please know that Bob Dominic's team and my team work on top of down play equipment, but it is a process, right? We maybe will keep a couple swings in stock, but keeping a whole swing set is a little tough. But we get it. High School Park, you'll hear all about from Doug from the Friends of High School Park, so I'll skip that. Melrose Park. Who's been in Melrose Park? Oh, a handful of people, good. I would say this is another one of those stranded assets in the township. We learned that there was a rogue soccer league playing there. And upon further inspection, we learned that it was a Caribbean soccer league. Haitians, Jamaicans, etc. And, you know, we made sure to engage in the proper permitting process because we were just getting calls that this was going on. But it's important to note, and this is not to be pulpy or anything, but in this day and age, you know, any population that you don't engage will do their own thing. 100%. When I was in the city, I ran this program called the Unity Cup. It was an immigrant-based soccer tournament. One of the things I learned was that if you do not provide recreational opportunities for everyone, they will create their own. Right? So before we did that engagement process in the city, before that engagement process, that was a disengaged group of individuals. It's just the way it goes, right? And you see that kind of everywhere. It can be youth populations, it can be adult populations, but it's important to know, and it's also important to know as residents that we're on top of this stuff, right? I know that stuff pops up all the time, and it's impossible, literally, for us four to be at 20 plus parks 7 days a week to see what that's going on. So we rely on residents to let us know, hey, listen, there's this group that comes every Sunday morning for soccer. Do you see what's going on? And then we'll address it. Coventry Park, one of my favorites. I just kind of fell in love with it when we did our little tour down on New Second Street near Coventry Avenue. And it is just a little passive pocket park. And if you go there is not much to it other than open green space and a couple benches that face the woods. And I can just imagine, you know, folks in that area being able to sit down and read a book or, you know, sit with their dog or have a kid run around behind them and go to a little bit of green space. It is one of those truly kind of peaceful parts of recreation that I really like and peaceful parts of the township. All right, where are the Barracudas at? All right, yeah. There's the Barracudas. So Compton, you know it because of the pool, right? Did you know it used to be a swim club? Someone in here probably knows that. And then it was gifted or given to the township and eventually named after, surprise, the commissioner. What you may not know is that there's a great deal of green space behind the pool. There's a basketball court back there. There's a lot of open space. There's a picnic area back there that, again, goes underutilized. Right? Probably use more after hours for kids trying to get into the pool under the fence from the green space that it is when people actually move in. We don't quite know what the future of Conklin Pool is going to be. There's always things rustling up about what's going on in Melrose, but we'll wait and see on that. But, the plan is to keep it going, and, we want to make sure we highlight this as a green space as well as a pool so that people can, enjoy it. I know you can go down there and we can pick up and you can use the playground, the basketball court. And again, there's a giant parking lot down there, so that's always something. Parkview, long stretch of park along Parkview Road. It was given to us to conserve open space, and that's what it is. It's right now it's open space in the natural area. There is a plan coming, a master plan for Parkview Park. You may have heard that on the last couple public affairs or board of commissioners meetings. So if you want to be involved in that process, if you just let us know. I think we're putting a little bit of a steering committee together, especially if you live in that area. It'd be really nice to have some look. And the Tookany, I'll let John handle this when we get to it, but it's gigantic, right? It goes basically from the Little League all the way up, I guess, past Gimbal and close to High School Park. And there's everything you can imagine in there. You got ball fields, you have passive recreation, you have open space, you have courts, you have a pond that you can fish in. You can fish in every year. And I'll let John really dig into that too. And then to wrap it up, last but never least, for all my friends on the far northeast part of the township, Desert Storm Park, the dubious distinction of the smallest park in the township. But it is loved and it is cherished by the folks on the east side. You can see a little park bench there and the dedicated flags. That's about it when you're there. But again, nice little nooks of the township. You can, just kind of sit and meditate, read a book, whatever the case may be. Couple bird sanctuaries. I do feel that we do need to do like some sort of birding lecture in the future. Maybe not part of the 26 events, but something because the bird sanctuaries are not quite stranded assets, but not many people know about them. And part of the reason is because of those, I'm sorry, because it's old school wreck, but those ugly brown and yellow signs that kind of just blend in with the wilderness. So as we move to the new blue township signs, you'll see these really pop out. The Pearly Bird Sanctuary along Glenside and Race's Mill, we actually had a nature hub. We actually walked it, not a bad walk. The problem is when you come out the other end, you end up at like the cul-de-sac of residents, you got to backtrack and come back over. But I would suggest taking a walk that way, as well as the Edward Hicks Barry Bird Sanctuary. That's on Cheltenham Hills. You wouldn't know this because you probably just see as you drive down Cheltenham Hills that open green space on your right. So that's kind of where this starts. But if you go, like if you're looking at the green space, you go right, there is a trail that leads up to the bird sanctuary, and it goes underneath a bridge, and it kind of follows, is that the creek there, John?
Yeah.
Yeah, it follows the creek. And, it comes all the way up to the corner of Cheltenham Hills and Church Road. And that's where, that's where the sign is. Like, probably the worst place to enter anything would be that corner of Cheltenham Hills and Church Road. I would not recommend parking there and walking that way. I would go down towards like Heathcote and, park there and come back up the other way. All right, that brings us to Thomas Williams. Well, you ready? I'll be your clicker.
Okay. Stay on the Okay, hopefully this is on. Okay, I'm Olga McHugh, actually across the street from the park. Thomas Williams Park is a little different than what we learned about 2 weeks ago. Curtis and Robinson, they get their history from the property and the famous people on their estates. For Thomas Williams Park, we're going to get our history from them, and that's where the history really is. Okay, so when it comes down to who was Thomas Williams, which was difficult to find, I have to say. Thomas Williams Park, located along Hugh Road,
Has anybody been there? Okay, it was formerly the site of Thomas Williams Junior High, which was demolished in 1970. The property was given to the township, by the school district, in exchange for township property, which is now the site of Cedarville Middle School, which worked out really well because the Thomas Williams could still be operating while they were building Cedarville. The school was dedicated as a park in 1971, and this has a couple different entrances. Here's like a semicircle in the front. There are steps that go up to the turn on. I'm not sure. Okay. There's an entrance on. Yeah, there's an entrance onto it. Those steps are the original from the junior high. If you look to the back where the trees are, the cedar trees, that's where the tennis courts are, and the tennis courts are the footprint of the school, which is pretty amazing to think. When you walk on the tennis courts, that was a whole junior high school. There are also an entrance to the park back off of Woodland. So you can actually walk through the park and then get back down to Greenwood Avenue. Park is 9.13 acres. There are 4 tennis courts, a full basket, 2 playground areas, a softball field, and a soccer field, a covered pavilion. This is a very active park, so it's very different than some of the others. It's very scheduled. And I have to say that Friends of Thomas Williams Park is about a year old that we declare ourselves as a form of friends. And we're still trying to figure out what we can do to make that a little different for neighbors. Neighbors walk through all the time to see during the pandemic, there were all kinds of things going on out there. People would just bring their chairs out, we don't sit outside out there. It's definitely a place for you to neighbors. Now you can also see that we have those trees in the park. This is a picture of what the school looks like. What's really interesting here is the Chestnut Hill schist, which is what the school is made of, was quarried from the back of the park. There was a quarry there. There's actually a line of Chestnut Hill schist that goes from the quarry on Waverly, like on Cheltenham Avenue in Waverly. That line of stone actually goes through to here and then goes up into Jenkins somewhere. When the school was going to be built, the stone was cut from the quarry and it's actually in 2 streets. I'll tell you a little bit about that. This kind of not my order of the picture sometimes. Just trying to figure out where we're at. All right. Thomas Williams, we're going to find out a little bit about him because that's the only way we can find anything out about history for this property. I'm suspecting that this was just a building lot. It's available. It was bought by the school district when they made this decision that we're going to need another school. The lots in that area the homes were all starting to be built around 1925, 24, just like our house was. And I would say it goes, well, I know it goes back to William Penn, but I think our property was part of the Wanamakers. Wanamaker owned a lot of properties. Then they were built, chopped up into building lots, and people just bought them. So that's where I'm thinking this was not a famous, nothing was torn down that I could find. No big estate, no big home, just building lots. Okay, Thomas Williams was the president of the school, as was his father before him. And while he was the president, they decided to build the school, and it was decided to be named after him from the community. Didn't come from him. Apparently, he did an awful lot of charity for the community, but wanted no notoriety for it, and it was always kept quiet whenever he did. And so when this school was dedicated, they decided to name it after him. This school was started as a junior high in the very unique. Cheltenham, if you read some of the history of the school district, were first in many ways. But a junior high in 1928, 27, we just didn't have junior highs. There were some high schools in Pennsylvania really weren't required to go to school past 10th grade. We did have a high school that went from 10th to 12th. But they decided that they would start looking at this bridging idea, connecting these two age groups, the elementary and the high school. So that's where this junior high came from. One of the first in the areas to have a junior high. There's a document, and I do have a link on programs included. But if not, it's a document called The History and Development of the School District of Cheltenham Township by Alexander W. Scott. And if you've been around in this community, you may have been able to hear some of his lectures a while ago. And he did a really in-depth study of this. It was fascinating to find out that you get back to 1697, the community, which was a Quaker community, decided that they needed a friends meeting house and a school. And the idea of having a school with a real core value for Quakers, and also that the community was standing that school. They weren't just going to have a private school. It has to be the whole community up. In 1683, we know for sure that the Richard Wall House was a meeting house, but most likely a school. There's not a lot of documentation, but we're pretty sure it could have been used as a schoolhouse also. But in 1734, Cheltenham population only had 23 tenants and landowners, and the total population 200 people. That's it. So schools were formed in little regions, and we had to travel to them. We shared, kids here would go to Philadelphia, so we think it's Philadelphia today, or they would go to Springfield Township. And then as the population, of course, increased, they had to build more. There were so many. That's the interesting thing about this document from Mr. Scott is the amount of schools, little one-room schoolhouses, and how they were continually 5-10 years ago knocked down, but we wanted to come somewhere else, and we need to accommodate the population growth. And that's one thing that surprised me. I think it was schools build it, stays there for a while, but this was a big effort to constantly do this. So anyway, the kids here from this township could go to Abington, Springfield, Philadelphia, and vice versa, just so, wherever the new school was put. There's a man called Anthony Williams, Sr. When he died, his will directed that money from his properties would be left to build a school. The school was located pretty close to the intersection of Cheltenham Avenue and Limestone Pike, but actually at that time it was Bristol, called Bristol. So kids from here would go there, and this is the western end of the township. A lot of activities going on at the eastern end with the whole school and all down that end, but this was all the western end. He left 10 pounds of money, 10 pounds, to help build the school, and 100 pounds he donated to support the school, keep it going. He also stated in his will that the school had to be completed in 2 years. And in the end, it was also, Miss Olga passed away, they did name it the Williams School. You'll also find interesting maybe that some of the trustees, when money was left, it was held in trust by some of the names we know all around the township, Mather, Childs, Mitchell, Shoemaker. They were appointed as trustees and all belonged to Abington Friends Meeting. So again, Quakers were watching over education for this whole area. The Quakers trustees also managed the school for Williams until 1838, when Cheltenham finally adopted the Common School Law. After the adoption of the Common School Law, the Williams School was managed by the directors of Cheltenham and Bristol Townships. Interesting that Oakland today is part of Bristol Township, or was incorporated into the county of Philadelphia. We tend to think Philadelphia is like a big city, but in fact it is a county. It just kept swallowing up all the other small areas. And then later, Bristol was merged into Philadelphia. As the population increased, more schools. In December of 1925, 9 acres of land on Hewitt Road in Wyncote were purchased from William and Alice Cavan. And again, I'm pretty sure it was not an estate there, just a building. In February 1927, a plan to reorganize the school into this new junior high concept was developed and adopted. And the decision was made that time to build 2 junior high schools, one to be in Wyncote and one to be in the eastern side of Cheltenham, which never actually got built. The stone was cut, and it was all stored down at the other property, and I don't know the exact location. Let's say it's close to where Cheltenham Elementary is today. That's where they stored all the building materials. Anyway, the war came, and another war came, and so that school never got built. Population changed a little bit at that time, and yeah, we never saw it. But also thinking that if you knew Shoemaker, remember Shoemaker Elementary, was on the corner where the Elkins Park Library is. I think that stone, that was Chestnut Hill schist, and I'm wondering if they didn't use all that stone that they cut that school, because that's the only other one down there that. Yeah, that was built out of Chestnut Hill schist. Anyway, this thing I think is the most interesting. Work began on the school in Wyncote. It was done in like 2 years, less than 2 years. That's pretty amazing to me, to go into a school in a short time. Anyway, when the school opened, September 1928, they named it for Thomas Williams, who again was alive, which is interesting on the school board. Anyway, the school functioned until from 29 through the end of the 2029 school year to 1969, spring 1969, and then in September 1970, that's when Cedar Ball started. And then Thomas Williams was torn down, which is kind of a shame. It's such a beautiful building. Anyway, the education is linked through multiple generations of the Williams, which is also really fascinating to me. Because again, we went back to that original school back in the 1700s, named the Williams, because of the money that was left for was Anthony Williams, to this Williams, Thomas Williams. And in fact, they are related. The original Anthony Williams was the great grandfather of Thomas. And the other thing I thought was interesting, when the school board first was formed, we had a director, voted on the school board director, John J. Williams. But I can't find a direct link, but I suspect that they were all the same Williams family, all the way from the 1700s into the present, relatively present time, which is pretty interesting. But that education is so strong in that family. And I think, and then you'll talk about some famous, I guess. most people know Reggie Jackson. Reggie Jackson went to Thomas Roots. And there's a lot of talk about from the alumni and the people that remember him, that he would stand in the field, hit those softballs or baseballs all the way down to Hilltop, and down to Greenwood Avenue. But interestingly enough, we'll see him here. He's got a broken arm in the blue picture. That's a football team. Reggie Jackson, is that baseball? Okay, but in high school he played football, which was interesting. Yeah, yeah. He didn't know what he was going to do, in college. He was trying to make that decision. But that was pretty interesting. And then here are just some little things. We have still a little tab. Some people still have their little mementos that we still have. And then lots of interesting chatter on the Thomas Group. Two things in particular that everybody seems to remember and discuss. Secret Soloist, which was everybody talking about the Secret Soloist, which apparently somebody was secret to sing their songs. My husband went to Thomas. Let's go all over. They had a Christmas musical event at the time, and everybody tried to guess who Secret Soloist. That's a big topic. And the other one was Roman numerals, of all things. I kept picking up comments about the first time they ever went to Thomas School. They couldn't believe lots of Roman numerals. And that seemed to make an impression. So there are some things out there, but the history really comes from the school and not the property. So I hope people think about that, and I hope don't change your name to some commissioner. Because truthfully, there isn't anything else that I can think of in the township, and I grew up that really connects education from the 1700s all the way through, multiple generations. That gave so much to the education of this district. Cheltenham is really known still for educational quality, so that's it.
So what I'm hearing is Commissioner Stein is out of line. All right, I think we are ready for High School Park.
Thank you.
Yeah, just tell me about.
Thank you, Bill. Great to see you all and to see so many people interested in the history of the parks. Great to see you all. My name is Doug Alderfer, the current board president of the Parks High School Park. We are 13 board members and 2 staff members. I see Dave Breeder in the back, who's our vice president. And here's Amanda Schreiber, and she's our operations manager. We also have a restoration manager, Cynthia Blackwood. I'm sure many of you know her. So, High School Park. We are just the latest, the board and the staff, just the latest in a long line of people who have loved this park and made it where it is today. That quote is great about the roots. The roots are deeply embedded because many of those folks that were part of the inception of this park are no longer with us. But we're drawing on their inspiration, their work, their time, and now we're benefiting from the buds, leaves, and flowers that they put into place all those years ago. We just celebrated our 30th anniversary. That was last year. This is our 31st year. Bill mentioned about the gathering we went to last year. So we're very proud of that. But the site has a much longer history than that. And I'll tell you a little bit about that. Here's the timeline. I'm going to move quickly through the timeline and read it. First purchased in 1904, first high school building opened on that site in 26, but the previous high school was Heller High School. I think it is, which is the Cheltenham Center for the Arts. So that preceded this. In the 50s, late 50s, it moved to Rice's Mill Road. Building became Olga's Junior High, and then it fell into disrepair for 20, 30 years. And you're going to see a video shortly that explains that history and shows actually what happened. It burned, it was vandalized, many things happened, and that paved the way for what we have today, which dates back to 1995. We can go to the next one. Thank you to the Township Commissioners in the 90s. Purchased the land with the help of an open space acquisition program, And that was really the foundation for the high school park that we have today. We're right across the street, up the hill, 11 plus acres, native ecosystem with meadows and woodlands. And we're very proud of what's become after all these years. First Arts in the Park says 1996, so that goes back quite a few years. Garden Club began, hundreds of trees and native plants, planted hundreds of trees and native plants in the 2010s. Really, the first 15, 20 years, the emphasis was on the plant material. And not that that's not important, it clearly is, but the last 10 or 15, we put a lot of energy into educational programs. So I'll talk about a little bit. Move on to the next thing. Okay, so you see all the people mentioned there, all the groups that really helped contribute to the look of the park today. Fencing, signage, PRAM, the Park Restoration and Management Group, installed a backyard natives garden, really again laying the foundation for what we have today. First website in 2006. Almost 20 years ago, the first restoration manager and operations manager were hired. And then in 2008, there's this huge binder we have. That was the ecological master plan, which some parts of that have been realized, others not, but it was a great start for what we're doing today. Big grant in 2010 to help restore the meadow. And then the video you're about to see is called Precious Places. 15 years ago, it shows the history of what happened in the high school, what it's become today, and then we'll talk about the latest things we're doing. Parktoberfest began 14 years ago, butterfly garden benches, the dragon sculpture. Do you know the dragon sculpture? If you're going up the meadow, see, take your head. So into the meadow and go down toward High School Road, there's a huge metal dragon. I think Cynthia told me it came from a portion of school or something like that. It was reclaimed from that and brought into this park. So it's a wonderful sort of relic. First art installation, but I'm going to go to the video. Oh, we'll talk about this very briefly. Actually, I'll wait till we're finished. Let's watch the video.
We're back.
Okay. I'll talk about this a little bit later on, but it talks about what we've done to make the park look the way it does today, and some of the activities we have been doing, and then I'll update you on what we plan for 2026.
This is one of my favorite places to come. The habitat is diverse, of course, but it's an 11-acre gem sitting right here in Elkins Park. And the amount of species that comes through here is really remarkable.
What's special about High School Park is the fact that it's a natural area. We have a lot of other places where there's playgrounds and athletic fields. And the nice thing here is you can come for a walk with yourself or a partner or a pet and walk through the park and just take in nature. It's a beautiful spot. Little oasis here in the center of Cheltenham Township.
It's being restored to native habitat. Animals can use it to live here. It used to be a burned down high school that was just a trash heap.
It was sad. I mean, I felt that as it ran down, and it was running down for years before this was a fire waiting to happen problem. It was sad. I had a lot of good memories here. The churches and the synagogues were around, but everything generated from this area.
As huge a resource as the school buildings here had once been, they've really become a decrepit, vandalized site, and there was a lot of, besides vandalism, all kinds of loitering, and it was a magnet for all the bad things that can happen in a community.
First thing that happened, some very serious pilfering went on, stripping the school of anything that was of any value. This property, the area we're sitting further along, became littered with school chairs, desks, tin goods. The school gymnasium had become a place where vagrants would actually camp out at night, would build fires in the auditorium and in the gym to warm themselves.
We were concerned about vagrants getting in there. We knew that was a problem. And then somebody sometime light fire, and that's exactly what happened.
We knew it could be left with a gutted high school building. It was clearly unsafe and clearly something would have to happen.
my recollection is probably even before we took settlement property, township took settlement property, we were working with a group of neighbors that eventually evolved into a formal organization called the Friends of High School.
One of the things that we agreed to do, in fact, was basic cleaning of the area. We did guarantee to do quite a bit of work restoring, getting rid of trash, and making it a cleaner, safer place.
There was a lot of enthusiasm about the fact that a small community was able to make a huge impact on community development in a town like ours.
Well, I think once these two schools closed, we lost the community center. We lost an area where people, parents, and children got together. And what this park has done has recreated that connection.
I'm an artist, and I had a friend who was also an artist, Martin Beers, who was a gardener. And I ran into her in 1996 and asked her how I could be involved in High School Park. And we started to talk, and I said, how about an arts festival? Because you're both artists. I mean, wouldn't that be awesome? There's nothing like that around here in Elkins Park. And we decided that the money that we made at the arts festival would be given to Friends of High School Park to help maintain the park.
First time we did arts in the park, we were amazed how many people came out and was saying, oh, this is wonderful. It's like the old days, meeting people they hadn't met since they brought their children to school. It was very, very clear that we had been missing that for half a dozen years. And when it came together, everybody wanted to be part of it. And this is a lot of the energy that has gone into arts and high school.
You form a stronger bond with people when you do something together. That's a community service kind of thing, or something that you have a real passion about. That just adds to that. We have day 2 now of the native plant demonstration bed planting, and look at all that we've been able to accomplish with volunteers. It's all about community spirit. We couldn't have done it without these people.
Everyone comes together, everyone helps out. And it's, I feel once I'm done working, I really feel as though I've accomplished something.
It is an extraordinary creation. All volunteer effort in sort of turning this amazing open space and pretty dense suburban neighborhood to a real special series of places, really, from the creek up to the road. I love walking the dog here. I love walking myself here. I love views from the far end of the meadow, where you get a perspective on the neighborhood you can't get really from anywhere else.
Yeah. It's interesting. If you walk the park, as you walk the park, you see the remnants of what was the high school. You see stairwells, you see the walls that are existing, that have remained from the high school. Interestingly, the rubble was basically dumped into the basement. So the soil is not, over the years, the leaf litter and things have enriched the soil, but we really had not much to work with. It's pretty basic. So that's where the meadow is. That's where the school basically stood. And then the woodland surrounds it. And then the areas that the playing fields were, that's down toward the creek. So it's all 11.5 acres is the total area of the park. So that, and we were remiss if I didn't thank the volunteers. Both the volunteers that we have that come to us on March through October, November, first and third weekends of each month, 10 to 12 on Saturday and Sunday, but also to the township for all the work that they've done in cleaning up and helping maintain the park, and to TTF, Tookany Frankfurt Watershed. They come once a month and they do invaluable work to help the park look the way it does. Right now, we're sort of in mud season. Great weekend. So we came back in December. Bill, the township organized a winter wonderland walk that was up 3 or 4 weeks. That came down, then the snow came down, and we've had the mud season since then. So, but I want to also talk about what's happening this year, and then I'll step aside. We have a pretty robust series of programs coming up. So we have Arts in the Park coming up May 31st. The work days start in March. We have a fairy house hunt in April. Oktoberfest, you saw, plant sale in May. We have bird walks. I think one was scheduled this morning. I don't know if it happened, but it was scheduled this morning at 8 o'clock. I mentioned the Winter Wonderland. We have summer concert series. We have 4 concerts happening in the summer, the 5th being the Township concert. So look for those and come visit, come to our events, come volunteer. Our theme for this year is the healing power of plants, and you'll see events and programs that link to that theme. So come to visit High School Park. Thank you.
Wrapping up, we have John Raisch. Come on, John.
All right. Hi, everyone. I'm John. I live in Wyncote. I am here to talk about Tookany Creek Park and Trail system. I am just a community advocate and resident. I do not hold any official capacity in any friends group directly here in Cheltenham, but I'm just the guy people come to say, hey, let's go to Tookany Creek Trails and Park and stuff like that. I am going to talk about kind of past, present, and future of the park system and the trail. Wrong direction. All right, so this is Bill's slide. I stole it. I think right, an hour and 15 minutes into this, we're probably suffering from our mental health and our physical health after sitting here for an hour. But these are really the awesome benefits, especially the Tookany Creek Park and Trail. People move here to Cheltenham because of our park system, and you all know it. You've been to the park before. You drive down on a beautiful day, and there's just people everywhere on the trail. So it's a really great asset of our community. So let's talk a little bit about what we think Tookany Creek Park and Trail is, and here I'm going to use the laser pointer here. So it's really a linear park and trail system that runs adjacent to the creek. And, I've always looked at Tookany Creek Park as starting at Cheltenham Little League. I spent many, many hours and weeks playing baseball with my kids down here. So we're starting way down here in kind of the southern end of the township, and we traverse upstream, through Veterans Memorial Field, Klein Heights Pond, the William Gottschalk Field known as Fire Field. And then now, at least for purposes of this presentation, I'm including Gimbal Field as part of that. And we'll talk more about the accessibility now of Gimbal given the new trail system. But that really adds a lot to the overall kind of network effect of the park. And then ultimately, we connect to our friends at High School Park through a trail. So that's really the only connection of my presentation with connecting to schools. The trail literally connects to High School Park. So there we go. Moving on a little bit here, we'll talk about kind of some data. This was just something I was curious about as I got into the park presentation. So the core of the Tookany Creek Park, not including Gimbal and not including Ashburn Meadows, is roughly about 30 acres. When you add, so that would be kind of the orange line here. When you add the Gimbal Field end, which is down in here, you actually get another 30-ish acres. There's more space kind of between New Second and Mill Road. So in a sense, we double the park space. This magenta area here is what is known as Ashburn Meadows. So the new development that runs along Ashburn Road. That the back of that property was subdivided when that deal was made. I think one of our commissioners led that up. So the township now, and we as residents have access to the backside of the Ashburn Meadows property. And as you can see here in the mileage on the trails, the orange trail from end to end is about 2 miles. The addition of the Ashburn Meadows trail system, which is a mix of earthen and paved, that's another 1.5 miles. So the way you would access the Ashburn Meadow Trail, anybody ever been on the Ashburn Meadow Trail? Okay, a couple of us. I highly recommend you check it out. I would say go and park at Fire Field, the Gottschalk Field, and on the back side of that field, there is an earthen trail and a bridge that goes over the creek. somewhere back in here, this red dot, and there's a paved path that goes all the way around the development itself. So it's a really cool addition to our public park system. All right, I want to get into a little bit of history. I'm not a history buff. I did my own research here. So if you have any facts to add, I know there's some historians here, please do. You know, I've always wondered, like, why is it called Tookany Creek Parkway, right? Other than the fact that we drive, the big feature is a road on the parkway. And what I found was, you know, the parkway itself came out of the Depression, and it became a major open space acquisition source for the township in between 1933 and 1945. And from a little bit additional research that I found, it was kind of maybe a little bit of our interpretation of a national trend at the time that, and Bill mentioned it in the beginning, where, you know, parkways and open space were places for people to gather. So kind of taking that idea a little bit further, you know, the idea of parkways came out, and again, I'm not a history buff or a civic or architect guy, but I did research that there was an era in the late 1800s called the City Beautiful era that had to do with planning, and it had a lot to do with the Benjamin Franklin Parkway. So maybe out of that, you know, Cheltenham adopted some ideas and then ultimately acquired all this land and was able to, you know, have some space for us to gather and enjoy the green space. So a little bit more about City Beautiful era. I'm not going to read this whole thing, but that era was a nationwide trend that led to things like the Benjamin Franklin Parkway and lots of other monuments, public buildings, grand boulevards across the country, really. So going back even further in time, and if someone can come up here and help me I love looking at maps. So Glennis is going to hand out maybe 2 per row. I don't have enough for everybody. I did print out this map. I love looking at maps. When I found this map, I probably stared at it for an hour. I know you're going to like it, Ted. Just kind of like thinking through where these things are in relation to the parkway. But I'm going to talk a little bit about the history. A lot of this history that I found is available on the Cheltenham Township Library System Digital Archive. There's a lot of really great photos there. I didn't know this until I did some Googling and found them. So feel free to find your Google and figure it out. There's lots of great photos. But most of us know that the parkway and the creek was a commercial and industrial area in, you know, the 1800s. And this here is an example of Hammond Mill. The footnote on the photo said that is Ashburn Meadows in the background. So, you know, we know there were mills, lots of things developed on the creek. My guess here, and you kind of see the scale of this mill, and you can see from the map, those of you that are looking at it, I do have a picture of it I'll throw up here in a second. There were many, many mills that looked like this along the creek. We all know now that none of them exist now. So all of that open space at one point had buildings and factories or whatever that looked something like this. But my guess, given that is Ashburn Meadows in the background, that this is probably somewhere around where Jenkintown Creek and Jenkintown Road hit the creek, kind of looking across the creek up into Ashburn Meadows. So the creek would be on the other side of the buildings, with Ashburn Meadows, the hillside up top. Here's the map that some of you have and are looking at now. Again, this is the one that I stared at for probably an hour. Really cool to kind of think about what was there in context of what we know of it now. So this magenta dot is, you know, downtown East Cheltenham, the intersection of Central, Tookany Creek Parkway, Ashburn Road is right in here. And you guys can all read it. You have the village kind of being in development here. talks about grist mills and chocolate and spice mills, and obviously the shovel shop. You can see there were roadways here, Ashburn Road, which was at this point in time Germantown Road, Jenkintown Road, along with Jenkintown Creek heading up here. So you had large dams and reservoirs and mills producing all of these products right along the creek. We know the parkway would run on this side, so you notice there's no really notation of a roadway there. I suspect that was just kind of commercial land and for tractors and horses and things kind of moving up through there. So this is a really cool map. You guys obviously can take that home. To give you a sense of the scale of some of the mills, I mean, we all know that Tookany Creek had dams and mills on them. So here's something called Roland Mills. If you have the map, the paper map, it's somewhere, I believe, over, let's see, over here, Roland's Dam. So that would be actually on the Jenkintown Creek. That is a tributary into Tookany Creek. But that's the scale that we're talking about in terms of the dams and the commercial impact that was on the creek. I mean, that's pretty significant if you ask me. And there's nothing like that now on the creek, nothing of that scale. The only thing that I can think of, and I have a picture at the very end, there are pieces of like large stonework that are found on the earthen side of the trail across from Veterans Field. If you go back in there, there's big kind of foundational pieces of dams that probably were of this size and scale. One last picture again, just to kind of demonstrate the scale of these buildings and, you know, the impact that they would have on the creek. I'm sure back then they had free reign to do whatever they wanted with the creek and dumping into the creek and taking water from the creek. Obviously, there is nothing like this now that is along the creek. It is, you know, open space, forest or grassland. So I'm going to fast forward from 1945, which was the last, at least, notation that I had in here about the township acquiring some parcels. I'm going to fast forward to 1999. I honestly didn't research too much what happened in that time space. So just want to talk a little bit about kind of where things have been more recently over the past, call it 20 to 30 years, particular the past 10 years that I've been a resident advocate for trails and park systems. So in 1999, the township with the Heritage Conservancy created the first township master trail plan, and they envisioned an entire trail system that went from Central Avenue all the way up to High School Park, exactly the space that we're talking about today. In 2006, the township's open space plan referred to that original plan, and in some records I saw that's when kind of maybe the foundation of what is the gravel trail along Tookany Creek Parkway, when that was maybe put in. 2009, additional feasibility work. 2017 is when I got involved with parks and trails in the township. And we kind of looked at, myself and a bunch of us kind of looked at the history and what was done and saw that there was kind of like a slowing in progress. So one of the first things we did was go to the township with a resolution. We partnered with the Pennsylvania Environmental Council and the Bicycle Coalition of Greater Philadelphia. And the township signed a circuit trails resolution that basically just said they supported the development of the circuit trails. Tom, you and I were on the EAC back then. And you might be asking, how many people know what the circuit trails are? Show of hands. Circuit. Cool. So the circuit trails it's an idea, and it is a group of organizations. But we here in the Greater Philadelphia, it's a proud home of the circuit trails, a vast regional network of hundreds of miles of multi-use trails that grow in size each year. And the idea is that the circuit connects our local communities with trails. So, there are trends across many townships and municipalities with trails that are internal to our townships, which is awesome. But now with the idea of the circuit, we can connect our township trails together and really look at it as a multimodal pedestrian bike accessible trail system. The circuit trails is an idea across the 5 county Philadelphia area as well as New Jersey. This is I do outdoor programming on the side, and this is a camp that I ran with the TTF in Tookany Creek Park on the trail system there, and just getting kids outside experiencing trails. This is kind of hard to read. If you're interested in the circuit, Google it. You'll find lots of maps and things online. This is like subway style map of the circuit trails themselves. Some orientation here. So the magenta dot would be Center City, Philly. This magenta box would be the segment of the circuit trail where Cheltenham is, and particularly along the Tookany Creek Trail and the creek itself. So this little green segment, that's the one segment of our trail system that runs along the parkway that the folks at the circuit trails considered complete, or an aspect of the trail system within the township that exists. To give you some other examples, this would be like the Schuylkill River Trail that comes out of the city up Kelly Drive and up into Pottstown and Phoenixville. We have those of you who use the Pennypack Trail is over here. The Delaware River Trail, including the leg that goes up into Bucks County. You get the idea. The big opportunity, though, for Cheltenham is to continue to think about building the trail out such that we as a township can go south someday on a trail network that would take us down through lower northeast Philadelphia and connect into the Delaware River Trail along the Delaware River, and continue that trail north from here, for example, up through Glenside and Wyncote, connecting into Wissahickon Park through the Gresham Trail Network, which I'm a big fan of. That would happen kind of like up in this area here. So continuing kind of on the timeline, in 2019, right before the pandemic, the TTF conducted with partners a feasibility study to further look at connections of the trail system connecting into Tookany Creek Park, and then also further upstream through High School Park. At the same time, we began construction as a township with what is called phase 3 of that original master plan that was developed in 1999. So it only took us 25 years to build that segment of trail. That segment of trail this is one of the bridges. Anybody ever been back behind Gimbel Field and see the trail that's going in there? So this is the bridge that was put in that goes over the creek. And I have another picture somewhere. Yes, maybe it's one forward down. Get again. There it is. Okay. So this trail, this is the trailhead with our new sign for Gimbel Field. This is the trailhead at Gimbel Field that will connect us safely by foot or by bike through the Gimbel property over to New 2nd Street, where the parkway connects in, where there is a crossing in progress. It's been at 80% construction now for 6 months. As you can imagine, when I asked Bill, what's the status, Bill? What's the status? But it's really important that crossing is done and built and safe to get across. You all know New 2nd Street can be a little bit crazy there, but it's a small but mighty segment that will connect the two sides of our township together safely by foot or by bike, and really complete that entire orange line from my map. So I'm super excited about sometime in the spring when the crossing is done, we can do a ribbon cutting and really get everybody down into the park. And then I know we're doing a Parks on Tap in the summer down at Gimbal, so that'll be a great way for people to experience this new trail. Some other bits of news, and I promise I'll be done in 5 minutes, less than 5 minutes. We all know that the Melrose Country Club is in redevelopment. The developer there has submitted plans where there are both on-premise trails as well as a trail that would be supported down by the creek that would be part of the circuit. So that's a big win. Obviously, we still have to monitor that and make sure they deliver on their promises. Some other connections that are under consideration. So the township has submitted some grant applications to connect, to create a trail to connect from the north side of the Melrose property at Ashmead all the way up to Ashburn and Central. So that would like run along the side of the road. There's some green space there, passing CLL and then connect up into that intersection. More recently too, the township has gotten serious about some applications for money to connect Wall Park to the Jenkintown Wingcote Station. Of all the years I've been doing work with trails, that is the one that a lot of people ask me about. So John, when are we going to connect Wall Park to Jenkintown Wingcote Station through or along the bird sanctuary that Bill mentioned? And those of you that have driven along, most of us probably have, that section of Cheltenham Hills. It's a great section to drive, not a lot of access by foot or by bike. It's also ecologically an area that needs a lot of help. I mean, a lot of our spaces do, but there's English ivy on almost every tree, and the entire creek side is covered in Japanese knotweed. Nevertheless, what I've seen is when we can get people, we get access to land like that and get people next to it, they become advocates, like we've seen in our other parks, and they want to get in there and take care of the land. So that's the goal. Finishing up the other side of the township, imagine a trail that comes up through here, through Jenkintown Wingcote Station, through Glenside, maybe behind Renninger, along what is known as the trolley trail, which Tom here clued me into many years ago. But is anybody familiar with like the backside of the Glenside Library, where the Arcadia old Bishop McDevitt property is? Tom here clued me in many years ago that an old trolley line used to run along Keswick Avenue through that space, maybe all the way up through high school, right to the high school. So the provisional line for the circuit would be carried through there across Royal Avenue. There's another green space. Next time you're over in that area, Royal Avenue, you'll see a green space that could take us up to Church Road. So provisionally, that's where a trail could take us. And then eventually through Arcadia, the seminary that's up on Church Road, crossing Willow Grove Avenue into the Gresham Trail land, which is actively being developed coming out of the city with the Friends of Gresham Trail, which I'm involved with. So that's really exciting to know that there's activity, there's construction, there's design, there's application to for grant funding kind of in lots of different areas. So might take us another 10 to 20 years, but you know, we'll get there someday. I think I'm almost done. And yeah, that's it for me. This is a picture of me, by the way, in 1994 on the earthen side of Tookany Creek Trail. My friend and I had a college, we were both, we went to separate schools, and we had a photography class. And that's me on the side. But if you're interested in parks and recreation and trails and you want to have your voice heard and try to make a difference, these are the ways to get involved. The Environmental Advisory Council, the new Active Transportation Committee, even participating in traffic calming. These are all we all have kind of common goals in mind. And then obviously attending official meetings like township commissioner meetings, planning meetings, and most importantly, talking to your commissioner. So, thank you. This concludes my TED Talk.
So after listening to John, Doug, Mindy, and Olga, I mean, how can you not be passionate about parks, right? And, you know, if you go back and you see the YouTube video of your back on February 7th with us, the same thing when it comes to Curtis and Robinson. And I can speak for my team. I can speak for the park maintenance team that we love the green spaces and stuff. So we love all the public spaces. If you really enjoy public spaces, right, get involved with the local friends group. If you want to see more at pools and community centers, please advocate for more for Parks and Rec. Come to me, come to Kelly, come to Sylvester, and just let us know what you're looking for. We're always open to ideas for sure. Before we wrap this up, a couple things to remind you about. You know, not only does Kelly has the coins and the books over there if you can get them for this event, but there's also the historic tour maps that we gave out in January. We did confirm this week that the bus tour of these sites, including the space you're in now, will be in May, Saturday, May 9th. It's about a 5-hour day with once in the middle of it. We'll take a luxury bus around the township and see all these sites. So be on the lookout for that for sure. And that will be a free event. You know, you just have to reserve a seat on the bus. But not a free event is Founders Day celebration at Elkins Estate. That's on Sunday, May 8th. Those tickets go up in price at midnight tonight. The early bird special closes at midnight tonight. I'm sorry, March 8th. March 8th. Thank you all. So make sure you get your ticket if you want to go. We have over 100 tickets sold. So it may be close to a sellout when it's all said and done. We'll see. You go to the Cheltenham PA.gov, and then there's a link to the event right there. It's also on all the social media as well. So I want to thank everybody. This was a true labor of love. The Park Friends groups have been awesome. My team has been awesome. And both audiences have been awesome. So I think that the last thing I have to do is have to officially thank our speakers. So you may have heard we went through a branding campaign. And I'm all about branding. I feel like if you're going to do a brand and put yourself out there, you better put it everywhere. So we had lapel pins made for special events. So I'm going to present one to Olga, Mindy, John, and Doug. Welcome. Oh, good to hear. And thank them once again. I'll ask them to stick around for a little bit. If there's any lingering questions, feel free to come up and chit chat. Make sure you get your swag before you leave. I hope to see everybody in March. Thank you.